Good evening, good morning, and whatever. Hello, I'm back here to talk about Destiny. A lot of people know I play Destiny quite a bit. Well, I tend to play it quite a bit. I also talk about it. I don't think I've tweeted about it in a while, but yesterday, after Bungie's weekly blog post, there was a discussion about something coming next season, which in basic terms is known as Transmog, which basically allows you to take any armor piece you like the look of and apply it to another armor piece, say you've got better stats or perks or whatever on. And yeah, that's finally come into the game, and it basically lets you pick any piece of armor you've earned and apply it to your character, and that goes for literally everything you've earned that's in your collections, pretty much since day one of the game launching. But they when they announced it last year, and they've obviously they call it armor synthesis, is what they called the name recently. But when they mentioned last year, they sort of said that they were going to have it so that you can complete it with in-game effort or with silver. Silver being the microtransaction paid currency that they have in the game. And obviously that immediately makes you kind of go, oh, like what are they doing? And unfortunately, after they went into detail about how it's going to function when it comes into the game on May 11th as part of next season, it kind of just confirms most of the worries that people had, but just not in that it's overly grindy, but we don't know the full ins and outs of how this is going to work, because to be fair, they gave a lot of specifics for the function and the way that you do it, but there's still a ton of questions. There's still but to get into it, basically, so I wrote an article about this yesterday. You can kind of read more of my thoughts there. This is kind of just mainly thinking I'm gonna pick up on some of the other points that people made on Twitter, and I kind of just wanted to fire back with my thoughts on them. But to kind of give a summary, basically you had to earn the thing, to actually earn the material that you need to turn an item into an ornament, which is Destiny's kind of that they've already had an ornament system where essentially you apply the look of something to something else that changes how it looks. So that's just their naming of it. And to do that, you basically have to kill enemies to get a resource called, I have a list somewhere here. You have to, quoting from Bungie, you have to defeat enemies to earn synth strand. Then you spend that synth strand on bounties to earn synth cord. And then you convert the synth cord at the loom in the tower into synth weave, and then you use the synth weave to convert an unlocked armor appearance that's either of a legendary quality or lower into a universal armor ornament, allowing you to use it on any piece of armor. And it's imagine if you're listening to this and you've not played Destiny, you're probably going, what the hell's that? What's all that about? And it's a pretty complicated, over the top sort of setup that doesn't bother me a ton. It just feels like maybe it's a bit too much sort of thing, but that's not really my main issue, and I kind of feel like that's something that they can change down the road, or whatever else. But the worst part is that they're limiting you to 10 armor pieces per season, per class per season, and next season, as its kind of debut, they're gonna have everyone's going to get 20 per class per season, for the season. So next season, you're going to be able to convert, I don't know if you're able to convert 60 pieces on one character, if you played another character, earn the currency, and then transfer it over. They haven't specified this, and this is the kind of questionable thing with it, because when it comes to the paid stuff, that is account-based, but anyway, so I'll get to the paid stuff in a minute. But yeah, that essentially means you can turn 10 armor pieces per class per season into an ornament. And for numbers' sake, I have the game up here. In my collections, I have 1,758 acquired armor pieces. Now, some of those are ornaments already, they're already universal. Other ones are ornaments for specific armors, which there's a few issues with that as well, which they've sort of outlined that they're looking at trying to fix for later. So I would say that's at least 1,500 at least that are proper armor pieces, from through common, uncommon, rare, and legendary quality. That doesn't include exotics, because exotics are in their own tab as well, and exotics aren't part of this system anyway. So yeah, that would essentially mean, if you was to do the math on that, well, if I can change 30 a season, potentially just 10 per class per season, then I've got more armor pieces on my hunter than I have my titan and warlock. you're looking at a few years. Like, I think I was thinking about it probably be like 10 to 15 years at least, and that's barring any new armor that comes into the game. And of course, there's going to be new armor next season because it's going to be part of the season pass and the activity. And so yeah, and obviously you can buy it for silver, which, as I said before, is the in-game currency that you can pay for. It's apparently 300 silver for one armor piece and 1,000 silver for 5. The pricing's a bit weird, but you know, I mean, I'm not surprised. That's just how games are for some reason these days. And something that I kind of was kind of questioning on this whole thing is like, well, if the process is going to be a grindy already, why is there a limit to how many you can earn? You know, and I want to know how baked in this earning, because my hope is that they're going to change this by the time the season launches. But I want to know how baked in this limitation is. Is it like a account thing that the game recognizes when you've got 10 and that's it? Is that something they can lift freely, or is that something that, you know, it's baked in literally to the system where there is a set number of bounties and maybe you have to complete them all every day? There's a lot of questions and a lot of things that they haven't answered and a lot of things they haven't been clear on, that when it comes to involving Eververse, which is the storefront in Destiny, when it involves that, it usually means they're trying to, I don't say they're trying to hide something, but it usually feels like there's a bit of a hidden agenda, if you will, a hidden reason, you know, that, and I don't want to make it sound like Bungie's like a, because I don't believe Bungie is like a terrible company when it comes to this stuff, and I actually think Destiny has a decent setup, with, even though it does kind of do it. It's a free-to-play game with paid expansions and season passes, and so you kind of think, well, hang on a minute, is it free-to-play or not? And they have an item shop, and then they're going to have this, and they're limiting players. But we'll get into more of that later, but they are also... shaders are going up from 40 to 300 bright dust, which bright dust is like your... It's like the free silver, essentially. It's the version of silver that you earn in the game. So I'm not a huge fan of that, because it feels like over time they've kind of started to control our brightest earnings quite a bit. But they're also adding a cost to apply the shaders of Glimmer. Glimmer's being like just Glimmer's like your standard currency that you earn a lot of. I seem to run out a lot of very quickly for some reason. But I actually think that's to do with the fact that you have to spend Glimmer on your daily bounties, which are just like your challenges that you do every day. You have to spend it when you apply mods to your armor to change like the functionality, which when you're swapping around mods for different bounties that you need like certain weapons for, and I swap around mods to be like the most efficient completing the bounties, my Glimmer cost, like the Glimmer spendings, like jump up. You think, what, for 3 mods it's 1,500 Glimmer and you're capped at 250k, but that every few, well, I would say every few minutes, but every few hours or every day or something like that, it starts to stack up, kind of thing. But yeah, they've obviously soon what they're going to do is they're going to make it so you have to pay to apply shaders. There is going to be an apply all button, and I should outline, before I go any further, the whole Transmog system. Like, I've been very negative about some of the stuff they're doing, and I've been kind of against, you know, a bunch of like the kind of, you know, a lot of these other things that I've kind of mentioned, but in its core, what it is, it's really cool stuff like this in the game. I originally was against this, but I like the fact that it's a bit grindy. It's not as simple as just load up the game and get what you want. I think that's a good decision. I think maybe it's a little bit complicated, but I think it's good. I think it would have been entirely boring if it was just like, oh, everything you can turn into an RP, into an ornament super easy, because that just sort of, it loses a bit of, you know, it's like, well, then that's, because I've always imagined the system, and this is why this kind of pisses me off, all these choices so much, but I always imagine this transmog, or armor synthesis, as another gameplay loop. Like, it's not going to be a core focus all the time, but it's an extra checklist in the background of the game, and so I can work through these, you know, over 1,000 armor pieces I've got, and I can slowly kind of like try and check them off, kind of thing. And to me, I wouldn't play. I don't know if I'd play the game specifically for that, unless it was like a really cool armor piece that I really wanted to make sure I had. You know, and I'll probably, when it comes out, I'll probably prioritize the things I want. I mean, I'm going to have to with a limitation of 10, 20 for the first season. But, you know, I would probably prioritize, but then I would also, when I've not really got anything I want to chase, I would just slowly work and like chip away at those, you know, the armor pieces that I might not use. But even if I might not use them, having the option that I can just pull them and equip them whenever I want is really nice. And this is kind of where I'm going to get into some of some of not the criticisms, but some of the ways that people have fired back as a defense for the system. So, one defense I've seen by some players about this, they've said that, something along the lines of, you don't have that many looks that you're going to chase, And well, my response to that is, well, why is the option bad? Sure, I have a set look for my hunter, and I might have a set look for my hunter, but I would like the experimentation, right? The idea of the system and the way that it's been promoted and the way that it's been spoken about and the way that people have spoken about and the way that the reasons for people wanting it in the first place is just to have a way that you can have the game mechanical parts of your build and your character as a easily focused part that you don't have to keep getting all these new armor pieces all the time. It's a way that kind of simplifies that a bit more. You can pick an appearance you like and you can just roll with that. But it's just, why not the experimentation? Why do we not? Why is that a problem, kind of thing? And I think people being like, well, you're not gonna have that many to chase. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna be swapping how I look every single day. I might not even need more than 10 or 20 a season. But that's not the point. The point is that when it comes to game design, and we're talking about the game from a fundamental, this is a video game, and we play video games. Yes, we pay for things in them sometimes, but the core of a game is to play the game. So, to me, why is it we're being held back from earning any more? Why? And now I get why, to be fair, I'm saying why, but I know it's a business thing. But the defense that you're not going to have that many to chase, it's like, yes, but that's not the point. Why do you care how I play my game, kind of thing? This isn't like we're earning way too much currency or we're earning way too many rewards than we should be and they have to bring it down. This is changing armor I've already earned, some of which I've earned multiple times. I've just dismantled over time because of the fact that, I'm not going to use it, or I've already got it once, I don't need it again. That was especially true in the first year of Destiny because there wasn't anything random on the armor. So, it's like, so what's the problem with me just wanting, the ability to transmog a lot of it and just to kind of work my way through it? Because I was really looking forward to that, because the thing I think Destiny is at its best when you have these various things you can work your way through. You can kind of like, you can log on, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do some strikes, I'm gonna get my weekly pinnacle or whatever. But I'm also gonna pick up a few bounties, I'm gonna level up my pass, I'm gonna earn some bright dust along the way. Even though bright dust earnings are pretty bad anyway, but you might get a random strike weapon at the end of it. You are also, in Destiny 1, you had been leveling up your weapons as you're doing it. And it's like, to have an extra thing in the background that you're working towards, I think it's just really cool, and it makes the game have more depth. And sure, it's not going to be as motivational when you've got all the looks that you mainly want, but you've also got to consider that it's just cool to try different things on and try things with different shaders. And it's the freedom here. We were able to equip armor before without the need to pay anything, and I've already earned that armor. And another thing another point that I'll sort of link in with this is that people have also said, we'll just use the old armor, which I find extremely confusing as a point to bring up, because I think it has literally no grounding in the game, because people know that not all armor functions the same, because armor from year 1, well, in fact, all armor from year 1 and 2 and seasons 1 and 2 of year 3, all of it's been power capped, all of it you can't get above a certain level. So, and not only that, all of that other armor also, as they've changed armor, in year 2 they got random perks, and in year 3 they got armor 2.0, which was like you could customize your armor how you want, it was just the random stats that you're looking at. So you can't go back and use them, because either, well, some people would have already dismantled their armor because of the fact that they thought that this wasn't going to be as stingy, or because Bungie have just basically kept, really quiet about this, because they said that they're still working on it and they can work it out, and they've only just, as of yesterday, again at the time of recording, Thursday 22nd of April, it was only then that they decided that they were going to go into detail about it. Now, I'm not complaining about that, because that's up to them, it's a development thing, fair enough, but people were obviously expecting that they wouldn't, weren't thinking that it would be a limit, and Bungie haven't said anything about it, and that's it. Not gonna get complaining at them for that, because development, I'm sure it's not super easy to call out exactly how things are gonna work several months away. So yeah, so it's not people who say, just use the old armor, it's a pretty, I think it's a pretty poor defense, and, you know, why are we even saying that? Because we know that not all the other armor pieces aren't up to current standards of armor. They also don't have access to the same mods. They also literally, for a lot of them, can only reach a certain level. In terms of raid armor, people they were re-upped with Season of Arrivals, which is the last season last year. But the raids aren't in the game anymore, and sure they were re-upped, but not everyone earned them. It's, and a lot of people already had the armor pieces. A lot of people probably thought, well, I don't really care to run the raids again because I already have the armor pieces, and we know that Transmog's going to pull from your collections, so why do I need to actually... Well, I don't know if that was actually announced until later, but regardless, a lot of people would have been hoarding the armor again, regardless. I've still been hoarding armor, because to me, I'm like, well, I want to wait until we actually see how it's going to function, and I'm kind of glad I hoarded the armor, because in the case of some, I could maybe use that armor if I wanted to, but again, I can't farm for a better stat roll on it, so I'm going to be limited gameplay-wise. I can't earn a lot of the armor anymore, because the content's no longer in the game, and so all of these limitations just really kind of, I almost feel like maybe they could limit how many I don't know how to describe it, but like, this season and the previous 3 seasons before, they could be like, okay, you've got a cap there, but anything from year 1, 2, and 3, you're free to just go crazy on. That's another thing I thought about that they could have done for this. I don't really... I think this system is clearly something that probably should be a little bit more curated. Obviously, there's people said, oh, it's a business, but it's like, yeah, but it's a free-to-play game, sure, but they have had paid expansions every single year of Destiny's life cycle. And on top of that, they're now doing paid seasons. Personally, I've paid for every expansion and release Destiny has offered, pretty much at launch, for every single one, besides Dark Below, I think. And D1 I didn't get at launch, but I played House of Wolves close to it, and it's pretty much from then on, I've stuck with Destiny. So, yeah, and so it's a free-to-play game, but they've got paid expansion seasons, they also have the item shop, and so to me, I don't really think we can talk about the game like it is super free-to-play. And something else, I've got some notes here, and I think later on I mention it. Yeah, no, here we go. Yeah, I say that because of the fact that I'm paying for this content, but some of it has actually gone free. The destinations, all destinations are now free. So Beyond Light came out, I wasn't paying money to go to Europa. I was paying in Beyond Light. When you pay, Beyond Light costs the same amount as like Taken King and all these other expansions, and before you got access to the destination, all the missions, the raid, the guns, you got access to a bunch of stuff, and it felt like a proper expansion, and it still does feel like a bit of an expansion, but in the case of Beyond Light, Europa was free to everyone. I think everyone actually got to play the first mission of it, because that's how you unlock Europa. Obviously, I get things like Empire Hunts, the raid, the story, I get Stasis, So there's a lot in it, and I've never had any problem with paying for the expansions. Like, it has, sort of depreciated the value, even though the cost is still the same, with the game going free to play. But I've never really had a huge problem with it, because to me it's like, oh, well, it's Destiny, I'll probably just buy it, and I will buy it, and I'll play it anyway, kind of thing. So, to me, that's never really been a problem. And, someone else, I think I saw someone say that, or I think I've seen, but a lot of these things I've seen a few people say, but people have been like, oh, Bungie know what they're doing, they have their reasons, sort of thing, and it's like, well, I know that, I think everyone probably knows that, but it's like, it doesn't mean they're good reasons, or not necessarily good reasons, it doesn't mean that they're fair reasons. But part of my problem with all of this is that, I kind of hate a lot of these defenses that have been thrown out, especially the ones that are like, or you don't need to, or you won't ever use it. And it's like, I just think it's inherently such a bad defense, because it's like, well, why are they charging money if people aren't going to use all of it? They're charging money because they, or silver, because they know it's a cool system, people have wanted it for a long time, and they probably don't want people getting all their favourite armor pieces in one. You might say, oh, but they don't need it. But as I said, why is that charge there then? Why is there a limit to how much I can earn? It's almost like one of those backwards defenses that people say, but it's like, yeah, but you could just reverse that. Like, if people aren't going to use it, or don't need them all, then why is there a limit? Why are you? There's obvious the limit is in place because it's clearly there because they want people to pay money. As I said, it is a business decision. And to me, a point I made yesterday in my article was that I don't really consider it an option to pay because, yes, anything that costs is an option. You don't have to buy it, but when we're talking about a game, and, this isn't, I'm not being forced to buy a DLC or I'm not being forced to buy a game or anything. This is a system within the game, and I think part of the problem I don't like is the fact that this feels very closely knitted with a gameplay system. And I'm a little bit kind of not fun. I'm not a huge fan of when a game system is intertwined with a monetary system to get money, because that feels like it's I feel like it's impeding just inherently on the game design, but I also feel like that's a bit intrusive on my part. I've never really had a problem with the item shop in Destiny, other than when it was in year one. I still don't love it now, but my problem is that I don't love these things, but I've come to accept them because that's just how things are. And then this is another thing that they add, and to me that's just it's more and more. And I just think, if people accept this, how far is Bungie going to go? And I hate saying that because I respect Bungie. I love Destiny. I think it's a great game. And I've poured thousands of hours into Destiny 1 and 2. This isn't like how dare Bungie try and make money? Because they're a company. Like, I get it. I totally get it. But they're also making a game, and when it comes to making a good game, and we're talking about a game that we play, that I invest lots of hours into and I'm passionate about, why, like, when you start being like, oh, we're trying to get, they're obviously trying to get money, and it's like, no, well, I'll just give you money when I feel like I want to, kind of thing. And I think kind of like people do need to consider the gameplay impact of all of this, really. Like, I just why do I just hate that people are so like, games are expensive, and games are expensive to make. Okay, like, I'm not denying that at all. I have no clue how much money it takes to make Destiny. Bungie are also hiring more people to try and make Destiny better, so that's another thing I've thought about, and I was like, fair enough. And I get annoyed about this, but I'm like, even if it doesn't change, because it is true. I think Datto mentioned this in the video. I usually leave links when I mention a video. I usually leave links in the description. But Datto mentioned in his video that, yeah, we're probably not gonna need loads of spaces, but the limitation just feels like it's a bit in the way. It sort of shrouds the system in this sort of negative air kind of thing, and it's like, why does it have to exist? I get why, but it's just it frustrates me. And I just hope it's not too in my face that that's what they're trying to do. Um, you know, but I am, as I said, I am looking forward to this system as a whole, because it's like, it's just cool to know that we have that option. I just hate the fact that there's almost like a counter going down, because typically for me, and I mentioned this in my article yesterday, whenever a game says that I'm limited, when like Ascendant shards are a good example in Destiny, because I know how rare they are, and I don't really play enough of the stuff, like the activities, to actually get them consistently, like trials, and I don't farm nightfalls. I probably should. I've wanted to for a while. I just never get around to it. But even though I never play that, I then don't. I hold on to my Ascendant shards, really, and I'm very sort of, what's the word? I guess precious with the ones I do get, because I want to keep them so that if I do really, really need to spend it, then I have that option, kind of thing. And I think that same mentality is going to carry across to Transmog. I now know that this isn't going to be a system I can slowly unlock all my armor pieces with. And I also hate that it's every season. If it was every month, I think it would be annoying, but at least it would be like, oh, in 2 weeks or whatever, I'll be able to get some more toe, like another bit more synthweave to do it. And I think when you're like, oh, it's next season, and well, if this next season begins on May 11th, then we're looking at August. I think May, June, July, August. Yeah, you're looking at sometime in August, probably, when the next season afterwards will start. And that's if seasons are going to be 3 months, because of Witch Queen being delayed till early next year, and they usually only plan 4 seasons a year, and we still don't know what's going on with that. So we don't really know how long the seasons are going to be, and I just think that waiting game is like, oh, you can either pay money or wait 2 months, and it's like, what? Like, it just feels really annoying. And what makes it more annoying, as I said, is the fact that I wanted this to be. I was hoping it would be, and of course that's entirely me. This isn't on Bungie. Though Luke Smith, I think, did quote something along the lines of, it kind of means armor's always valuable to you, which doesn't really say much, but the way that they described it did come across like this is going to be like another part of like Destiny's gameplay loop. This is going to be another avenue where you can just make progress on something, and it is to a point, and then afterwards you have to pay money. And it's also weird how free to play esque this is, in that they're going to have an introductory quest that kind of introduces you to the system, and then it's going to be a system that you eventually have to pay for. And I don't know if that's going to be linked in with like the season pass that you like content. I don't really know how it's. Of course, we don't know, the season's not been announced. We've not got to play it yet. But it just feels weird. It feels very much like that's what free to play games do. They introduce you to this new thing. You're like, oh, that's cool, and then within like however much time, they're like, and now you've run out, you gotta pay, and it's not like, I almost wish they'd done 5 armor pieces a week or something, or 10 armor pieces a month. Like, I feel like there was better ways around this, but then maybe people wouldn't spend money on silver. And that's obviously what this is about. It's the fact that they clearly want to turn this into a monetary thing, but but that's a problem for me, and something I do mention, an idea I've had, and it's one I've had for a while, and I think this is a kind of a good time to actually do something like this. But it's to find a middle ground with this kind of system, but pair it with content ownership. As I said before, expansions, technically, in terms of amounts of actual content you're buying, you could argue aren't worth the same as what they used to be, even though they cost basically the same. Said I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just looking at facts here, and in terms of playable content and what's new. And I was happy with Beyond Light. Money. I don't think I've ever felt that I've wasted money on the Destiny expansion, because I've always just played it a lot. But something I just thought for a while is that with it being a free to play game and they've got an item shop, but I'm still paying every year for an expansion, or, in the case of Beyond Light, it was the deluxe edition, so I got the entire year's worth of seasons and a few extra items with it. And I paid for that, and I have no problem paying for that. I thought it was fine. I'm happy with the fact that I've bought it. I probably will continue to do that. But the game is free to play, and because it's free to play, I feel like there needs to be a better intersection between like paid content and free content, because as I said, I've not had a problem with it, but as they've done more and more, and especially in this case, I think there needs to be some acknowledgement. Like, for example, is there something they could do where they raise the limit if you have the season pass? Something I thought was maybe you could get up to 20 or 30 a season if you own the season pass, and if you own the expansion, you get like 100 a season, or unlimited a season. And I still hate the limit, because just on a psychological level, that everyone you spend is knocking down this number over and over, and you're not going to get a refill to the following season. And we also don't know how it's going to work in terms of, does that mean you have to earn all 10 per class every season, or do they carry across? Like, this isn't like, you're going to get these tokens, and it's like, I feel like it's going to be a number, right? It's going to tick down every season, and that number will reset every season. Which means you might play a bit in one season, spend 5 of those tokens on maybe all 3 characters or something, so you have 5 per class left, and then you get to next season and you're back to 10, but you don't have the 5 you've missed. And they talk about fear of missing out, and now I think this is probably, there's a lot of things you could look at and I think question them on, because it goes against what they've said before. But could you class this as FOMO? Is this a fear of missing out because you've got to make sure you've got to get all 10? How grindy is it going to be? Is it going to take a long time to get these things? Is that going to employ? And so there are the questions I have. And another thing that I actually think I have completely forgotten, as I was about to say it. Oh no, that was it. They introduced seasonal challenges as a way to make it easier for people who play just one character to get a good amount of Bright Dust and, I guess, other rewards that otherwise would used to be you've got to play each character and do everything on every single character. So they wanted to make it so where playing one character players have a bit more of a fairer time. I I like the thought behind that, but I also find it a bit kind of questionable because it's like, well, yeah, but in my opinion, if you play the game more, you should get more. I think that's fair. That's how I've always felt. And if you play all three classes, well, of course, I mean, there's already rewards, right? There's already rewards for playing different characters. But I think the seasonal challenges have been a decent thing. I don't really have a problem with what they've done. I thought the Bright Dust earnings on them have actually been pretty generous, more generous than I expected. Uh, and I hope that continues. Again, this is the problem. Whenever we get to a new season and they start doing other things, there's a lot of questions, and they're like, oh, are they going to continue that? Because it worked fine this season, but we don't know what's on their side, because the problem is it has been proven, and people will probably defend it as, oh, but they're a business and they've got to do these things. It has been proven that over time, Bungie have done things which limit how much you can earn in terms of Bright Dust and things that aren't related to otherwise paid items. And I play the game a lot, and I am very confident in saying that. And there's a lot of people that would probably be pretty defensive of it because they'd be like, "Oh, but like I said, they've got to make money." It's like, I get it, and of course I have no idea how much they need to make, but it does feel like a slap in the face when, personally, I've been paying for every expansion, and I don't want to sound entitled, because that's what this comes across as, right? It comes across as like, oh, you're saying that because you've paid, or because you've been a supporter of them for so long, you deserve everything in the world. It's like, no, I understand that this is probably, I mean, Bungie's a big company. They've probably got, like, they're working on another game. Like, there's a lot going on at Bungie. And obviously, I don't really have any understanding or knowledge of exactly their financials and things like that. So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know everything, but I can only speak for myself, right? I can speak for myself in terms of how I feel, and as a paying player already, that I have no problem with, because I think Bungie are pretty great, and I think the game is great, and personally, Destiny currently, I think the state Destiny 2 is in currently is the best state it's been in since launch. I think this is the best version of Destiny 2 we've had, and Beyond Light, I thought, is the best expansion in terms of quality. I'm not saying it's the best Destiny expansion. I do think Forsaken did everything that was right for the time, but in terms of quality and a confidence boost in regards to showing that Bungie can do all this, outside of they kind of ignored PvP with Beyond Light, but Beyond Light in itself I thought was a pretty great expansion. So I have no real problem with Bungie's dev team. I think they're doing a great job, and I respect the hell out of every person. I mean, I respect the hell out of every dev, just in general, but with Bungie specifically, I have a lot of respect for them, and I've enjoyed playing the game for the past 5-6 years. It has been over 6 years at this point. It was back in 2015 in February that I actually properly got into it. I played a bit before then, but that's another topic. So yeah, I don't want to sound entitled with that, because it's like, I have no problem with what I pay. This isn't me being like, I'm gonna stop paying you if you stop, because no, I think, I will continue to purchase expansions for Destiny because, I think the game's great. But it doesn't mean I have to support these other avenues, and I hope that other people do the same, especially the ones that are kind of up in arms about it as well, because, at the end of the day, I just want a great game. I want a game that I can play and that I can earn things from, and build my character and look cool and do cool things and play the new content and everything like that. And I think sort of, but Bungie have done a pretty great job at creating that currently. There's obviously a lot of things I want to see in Destiny, and I am confident that there's a lot of things that they're working on that, I mean, Witch Queen being delayed till early next year, it hits hard and it hurts, because it's like, I really enjoy the Destiny expansions coming out every year. But I also felt a confidence boost. I felt like, okay, they know what they're doing, and they get it. And that's also why just choices like this are disappointing, right? Because here I am, wanting the best for the game, not only for my sake, but also just for them, because as I said, I think they've got a great game, and Destiny's had a pretty rough history, especially through, D1 launch and D2 launch. And your criticism and your concerns, like, whatever, I'm sure they're valid, but I just hate this thing where it's like, oh great, a system that we were all excited for is kind of not the thing that we want it to be. And I just hope that they are able to buck back on this and come back with a bit of a better approach that respects people a bit more. As I said, to me, I feel like the best thing one of the things they could do, if they're able to work it out, is to just start thinking about those people who do pay already. Because I still spend money on silver. Like, I still occasionally have paid for some silver to get a cool item. And I don't like that because I don't like the pricing of silver. So I'm sounding like a hypocrite right now, but that comes from a place of I enjoy Destiny. To me, this is kind of worth it. I don't think the entire state of the item shop and everything like that is worth it. And when I buy silver, I think I've bought silver like 4 or 5 times in Destiny 2, so that kind of shows that I'm not really a big spender on silver, and I don't even think that I don't see myself ever going down that route, because I prefer to earn it in the game, you know. And as I said, a lot of my criticisms and complaints come from a place of I want to play this game. I want them to give me a reason to play their game. And if I'm playing the game a lot, I'm probably more likely to spend money. And so that, and as I said, and I think, I hope that this is something that they're able to figure out. And I think all of this feels worse because it's a feature that so many people have wanted for so long that suddenly when it, is described and gone into detail about, it's like, oh, you're going to be capped per season. And as I said, there's just a lot of problems, I think, with their kind of approach to this. And I think it doesn't help the fact that we don't even know everything either. Like, they mentioned about converting synth chord into synthweave, but we don't know if that's a 1-to-1. We don't know if that's you're going to need legendary shards and glimmer. Maybe Bright Dust. I swear to God, they better not put Bright Dust in that, because I feel like that's taking a piss at that point. And choices like upping a shader cost from 40 to 300, that takes the piss to me, because I'm like, I get the thought process, but it's like, why are we doing this? Because they've already controlled how much dust we kind of earn anyway, quite a lot through Destiny 2's history. So why are we getting additional things on top of, an already fairly limited and stingy system? And I don't think the dust earnings this season have been terrible. I think they've been okay, but I just feel like it's like another thing that's like, just stop doing it, please. Stop doing these decisions. And I almost, it's one of those, right? I suppose I don't know. Obviously, a company, they want to make more money. I don't really know what they're supposed to do to get around that, really. Obviously, but I don't know what the systems they can introduce, but I don't entirely think that this, in its state of how they've announced it, I don't think it's the right way. And I think they do need to start acknowledging the people that are paying every year for the expansions. Not to give them absolutely everything, because I get it. There's a lot of things going on in Destiny. Bungie is a big company, and I will say that when we had year 2 seasons, with Season of the Forge of Black Armory, Season of the Drifter, and Season of Opulence, they were fairly meaty seasons. Sorry, in like, I guess, content amount. I don't think they were amazing personally. I mean, I thought they had great content, but what I mean is that when we compare them to Season of the Chosen, they have done an incredible job. I am genuinely blown away with this past season, because I think that from pretty much all angles, they have done a great job. I'm not a huge fan of Battlegrounds specifically, but I think outside of that, and I think Battlegrounds are cool thematically, it just feels like a bit mindless, being like, oh, just gunning down enemies for ages and ages and ages, and I think it kind of gets a bit boring, I think, after a while, and that's why I've not really played it very much, and last season's hunts were cool conceptually, but I think they were missing a bit of spice, a bit of something that made them a bit more interesting. Yeah, I think as the content quality has gone up, the amount of story and dialogue that we've got this season has been incredible. Like, it baffles me. I have been surprised nearly every single week of this season. And there was like a 3 or 4 week period where we didn't get anything, and then Guardian Games just kicked off. And it is a bit of a shame, because it kind of feels like you've had so much, but they started a story and they ended it before the end of the season, and I think that's better rather than dragging it out. It's like they added more and finished it in a shorter time in a season, which I think is a very smart idea. But yeah, I'm going to stop rambling, because this has now been 40 minutes, and That's a surprise. This is how these podcast episode things are going to go. I probably missed some points that I wanted to make, but I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I'll link my article if you want to read that for like a proper deep dive into sort of my thoughts. I mean, this is kind of a deep dive into my thoughts, but yeah, I just sort of think I hope that there are some changes made. I hope it's something that they can easily change before launch. And I hope people. I don't want to say people stop defending Bungie because I think I defend Bungie quite a bit, but I hope people just start looking at games in general as kind of like, they're games. We are playing them. I get there's a business side, but please do not disregard someone's feelings as, oh, well, you don't need it. Why do you need that? And it's like, but you might have a point, but why is that the answer? Does that make it a good system? No, it doesn't. It's like you're basically saying, well, why do you need freedom? Why do you need, oh, what, you've already bought tons of silver and, things like that? Oh, yeah, no, but why? And Bungie don't owe people anything, right? It's not like you pay more money, you get more back. But I'm kind of like, well, when it comes to the expansions and it's a free-to-play game, I just think there needs to be a better intersection between those two. Especially with the fact that some of that paid content, or some of the content that used to be paid, quite large things like the destination and even the strikes. Even the strikes aren't even paid anymore. The strikes are free. So there's a lot less that we actually get as paying players now. And I've not really had a huge problem with that, personally. It was the same with Shadowkeep, I think, as well. But I've not had a problem with it because I just thought that's just the kind of direction they've gone in. That's just how it is. But when it comes to, these kind of systems, I would appreciate a little bit more benefits and kind of, I guess, sort of rewards for myself and anyone else who pays for the game. Because we treat it like a paid game kind of thing. But as I said, to be completely honest, I have no idea on their earnings. I have no idea on how it all works on their side. So, it could be that I'm uneducated. I can talk. Yeah. So, we'll see. We'll see how this pans out. I don't super love it. Hope for some changes. I would appreciate some dialogue from Bungie, not just like being quiet and tight-lipped until launch. I think this is something that, considering how many people have reacted very quickly in a negative way, I think this requires a bit of a conversation, And as I said, I have respect for Bungie. I think that what they make is great, and this isn't anything against them. It just sometimes feels like changes and things like this are a little bit disrespectful a bit to certain players, because it almost feels like we already pay money for this stuff anyway, and you're looping us into this free-to-play design system, and that feels a bit of a piss take. But at the same time, as I said, they are trying to expand, and I will say that my confidence in Destiny 2's future has never been this high. I am extremely confident. I can't wait for what's coming. I am like very excited to see what Witch Queen's got, and that's still another good 9, 10, 11 months away. So, a lot of things I'm excited for, and I'm excited for next season as well. Vault of Glass is coming back. I hope that I'll be able to run that. There's a lot to be excited for, I think, with Destiny. It's just a shame that these systems that are also things like me and many others were excited for ends up being a somewhat underwhelming announcement, it's often those that are tied in with Eververse that get me to be like, oh, okay, it just sometimes feels like things are sort of done without much. Well, I don't think without much thought, because there is a lot of thought, because it's on the business side, right? They know, like, it's not. They know what they're doing. Some people say that devs are lazy, or some people will say that devs don't know what they're doing, and I'm like, that's total crap. Devs know what they're doing. They have good reasons for it. It doesn't mean they get everything right first time, but I'm sure that person that's complaining on the internet, like myself, wouldn't get everything right all the time. I have no idea the conversations that have been had. I've got no idea on the design of all of this. So, I don't think I have a proper right to speak on all of that. But just in terms of how I feel like they could have done better here. And I think that there could have been some sort of equal. I don't think giving double next season is cuts it. I think that's and if in anything, that will make it feel worse the season afterwards, because we have half of the amount that we got the season prior. So yeah, but I'm going to wrap it up here. As I said, these are always unscripted. Obviously, these are unscripted, so if I've misworded anything or came across as crappy about anything, that's kind of just accidental because, as I said, I respect their Bungie a lot, and I know that they know what they're doing, and I know that devs just in general know what they're doing, and so I had to clarify a few things in my last video because I just didn't want to come across the wrong way. But when it's unscripted and I have a tendency to ramble, I think it can come across as maybe a bit like, oh, this guy talking shit on devs. And it's like, no, trust me. I respect any dev, especially devs that have been working through COVID, because I have no idea how they do it. I think it's incredible. Especially in Destiny's case, it's an online game and everything's kept running. And I'm sure maybe it's not as bad as I imagine it to be, but it just feels like there is a lot that they've had to do and a lot they've continued to do. And so yeah, as I said, I respect them a lot, and I'll end it here. So if you want to read my article, I'll link it in the description. And we'll see if any changes get made on this. This was much longer than I intended it to be, but I hope you've enjoyed listening. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you have any thoughts on this, whether you're a Destiny player or not, or even if you're not a Destiny player, what is it like in terms of games and paid systems and any MMO you've played? Like, just give me your thoughts on, I guess, the general kind of concepts of these kind of systems, and then just what you think of what I've said, and if you play Destiny, like, as I said, pretty much anything you can put in the comments, and I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on. But now I'm going to wrap this up, because it's actually been as long as the last video, 46 minutes, so we're with a 46-minute podcast now, apparently. That would be really awkward to time, I think, in future. And I never intended to talk this long, but we'll see how it turns out. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Ciao, 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 ciao.